Hello, everyone. Good evening. I can see that we are all online and available. Can you confirm that you can hear me clearly? Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Okay. So I can see everybody saying good evening. Can you confirm that you can hear me clearly? Loud and clear. Oh, awesome, awesome. That's good. All right. So we're going to be starting the session very shortly. Um, I'll just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes to give room for others to join and we can comment immediately. All right, people. So we're going to start now. Yeah, so we had to wait for some few minutes to allow others to join online. But now I believe we can start. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me. We'll commence now. So I want to welcome you all to this track of the AI Bootcamp for data analysis, advanced data analysis, and visualization. Um, so I'm going to be your trainer for the next few weeks. I'm going to continue from where our last trainer, Musi, from where he stopped. But more precisely, I will be taking you on the Power BI track. So I believe that we've done Excel to an extent for the last 4 weeks, but now we will start the Power BI track. Just to confirm once again, can you just drop on the chat window if you can hear me? Just type I can hear you, just for me to confirm that everybody can hear me clearly. Just drop on the chat window I can hear you if you can hear me. Okay, I can see kind this response. Okay, I can see Christy, Oma, Vicky. Okay, that's great. So I guess we're good to go. All right, so let's comment. Um, I believe that we're used to the ground rules already. So I'm just going to go over them once again. Let's be punctual. The class starts at 7. We will just give a few minutes for others to join online. Um, of course, this is an online class, so I believe that we should all have an open mind. Like I said last week, we are all here to learn, and even for myself as a facilitator, I also get to learn or pick one or two things from me. And even facilitating this class is also a form of learning for me also. So let's have one class. We learn from each other. I also want to crave for your participation. Let's try and respond on the chat window as much as possible. Also, let's have respect for each other. I believe we know all of this already, and you can also drop your questions on the chat window if you have questions. So I would give room for questions. So, to avoid interruption while the session is ongoing, you could note your questions down. I will take breaks at intervals to check the chat for your questions. All right. And I would get to answer your questions. So, for me to not lose track of your questions, I would suggest that you wait till it's time for questions and feedback at different stops, and then you could drop your questions, and we'll take questions for a few minutes, and then we'll get back to the class. But I mean, if you want to ask questions from your colleagues generally on the chat window that doesn't necessarily require my own response, you can go ahead with that. But when you have questions that pertains to what I'm displaying or teaching or facilitating, then just note it somewhere. And when I stop to take questions, then you can ask the question. So that way, I won't lose track of the questions on the chat window. Can we just type confirm if you all got that message clearly? Just type confirm on the chat window. All right, good. I can see the first response from Sami rather. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. I can see your responses. That's great. So because it's an online streaming class, there might be lags for few seconds, right? Also depends on my internet and your internet, right? There might be lags for few seconds. Then allow me to also chip this in. I would emphasize it for every day and every session and every class. If I get disconnected due to internet, just be patient. I would reconnect back in few minutes. So don't get worried if I get disconnected at any point in time. Just be patient. I will get reconnected back because of the internet. I also have backup internet to ensure a smooth session. So let's start with the introduction. Just like Musi also introduced me last week, Wednesday. My name is Abiodun Akifemiwa. I have a very brief bio here. Um, I work as a BI analyst. Um, I've worked in the fintech space. I've worked in the IT space. You have some of my core skills that pertains to this class here. Um, in case you're wondering what I look like, I have a picture here. Um, just to show you that for certifications that pertains to this course, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I also have my Microsoft Power BI Data Analyst Associate and Azure Data Fundamentals. And also on Skillable for some of the professional trainings I have reached up to over 100 students. So this is just a brief info that pertains to what we are doing here on this course, data related basically. So yeah, this is myself. I'm going to be facilitating you for the next few weeks, and I hope that by the end of this session, you would have been able to learn one or two things and also be able to practice one or two things in data analysis and also in Microsoft Power BI. So let's quickly jump to the objective for this learning track. Based on the feedback that I got and some of the information I've been able to gather from previous sessions, I understand that this is a mixed class, although the title of the course says Advanced Data Visualization. All right. But I understand that this is also a mixed class. So we have beginners and we have intermediary guys, intermediate. So I'm going to try as much as possible to carry both the beginners and the intermediate guys along. All right. But I will go at the pace of the beginners. But for those that are intermediate, for those that have experience, you are going to gain a lot because when I teach from experience, not just about the slides or the demo, but also giving you real life experience. We're going to have question and answer sessions on this call. So I have pop quiz for us. So I need you to pay attention. Okay. So let's go through the course objective. The first thing we're going to be doing is to understand data extraction. All right. Of course, before we do all of this, I'm going to give you today's session is basically an introduction into business intelligence, right? But from the next sessions, we're going to go deep into um, the core of what we have. So we're going to understand the concept of data extraction. What does it mean to extract data from a repository, data source, a storage system? We're going to look at all of that. We would also look at how to profile your data. Once you're done extracting your data as a data analyst, the first point of call is to extract your data. And for you to extract your data, you want to understand where is the data stored. You want to understand the nuances of the repository. Where is your data stored? What connector do I use? How do I connect to it? What are the things I would encounter when trying to extract my data from the repository? The next thing is once you've been able to successfully extract your data, you want to profile the data. And these are very important steps in data analysis. Before you even jump on crunching the numbers, you want to profile. You want to carry out data profiling. Data profiling basically means you understanding the nuances of the data. You want to understand the state of the data. You want to understand the structure of the data. You want to understand the level of accuracy or inaccuracy of the data. You want to scan through the tables, the rows, the columns to observe the data type, to find out if there are missing values, to find out the column statistics, the distinct, the unique values, and all of that, right? You want to find out all of these things, okay? So that's what data profiling is all about. If you don't understand some of the things I'm saying when I'm saying column statistics, missing data, accuracy, and all of that, don't worry. When we get into the lab, the practical session, you are going to understand all of these things with more clarity. When it's time for question and answer, I would also take your answer, okay? If you want me to go over something again, I would go over it again. Now, when you're done profiling your data, the next thing you want to do is transforming your data. Okay, transforming your data. You want to transform the data. Data transformation is basically the state where you are changing, is the process rather, where you are changing the state of the data. You are making the data improved. You are improving the state of the data. You are correcting any inconsistency, any inaccuracies. You are filling missing values. You are improving the state of the data. That's basically what you're doing with data transformation. Now, for the beginners among us, I'm going to use a different scenario now that has nothing to do with data analysis to explain these three objectives, right? Imagine you wake up one day and you feel like eating yam and egg. Okay? You feel like eating yam and egg. Now, you don't have anything in your house in the store. What will be the first thing you do? You go to the market, the nearest market towards you, right? To go buy what you would use to make your yam and egg. Okay? So you go to I don't want to mention the name of any markets, right? But you go to the nearest market, and then when you get to the market, now you now begin to select the items you want to buy, the tubers of yam, the crate of egg, or if it's pieces of egg, your tomato, your pepper, your onions, and all of those things that you need to do. You buy it, you pay for it, you purchase it, and then what do? You bring it to your house. You bring it to your house. Now, what you've just done is you've extracted the data from the data source. You've gone to the market to purchase all the things you need, and then you bring it to the house. You've extracted the data from the data source. That process is called data extraction. So if your data is stored in a particular repository, all right, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem, I'm sure Musi must have explained on-prem and all of that, right? When you extract that data, you bring it into your application for further analysis. That process is known as data extraction. Okay. Now, when you bring the food items that you got from the market to your house, the next thing you do, where do you take it to? You do not take it to the bathroom or the toilet or the bedroom. You take it directly to the kitchen, because the kitchen is the environment where you prep the items that you bought from the market. Now, there's a kitchen environment in our application called the Query Editor, which is what we use to profile our data. Okay, so when we extract the data, we are taking the data straight to the kitchen environment of our application known as the Power Query Editor. That is where the data profiling is going to happen. Now, let's assume you've taken your items to the kitchen. The next thing you want to do is to now profile the data. You want to understand the structure of the data. You look at the data, you want to see what you need from the data. You want to understand what you do not need from the data. Okay. All of that process is known as data profiling. Now that you've understood the structure of the data and you know where the inconsistencies are, all right, the next thing you want to do is to start your transformation process. All right. So if we bring it back to the example we're making, the transformation process is where you now begin to dice and slice and break and mix and all of that, right? So, for example, you take your tuber of yam, you slice it into smaller bits, you peel the cook. Some people cook without peeling. I don't know how a lot of people want to prep their own. I mean, different strokes for different foods. But for me, I would slice it and then I will peel the back off and then I will cut it into smaller chunks and then I rinse it and then I take the tomato pepper. I rinse it, I dice it, and then I mean you understand all of those processes involved. What I'm doing is I'm changing the state of those items from the way they were when I originally purchased it from the market to a better state that will make it easy for consumption. That's the same thing you do for your data. So when you've extracted the data and you've profiled it to understand the structure of the data, you are looking at the number of rows that are there, the number of columns, the name of the table, you are checking where they are missing values and all of that. You're looking at the data types of the column. The next thing you want to do is to now begin the transformation process where you are now actually working on the data to clean it up. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done at that particular stage, right? So that's basically what transformation is all about. But we'll still talk about it in more details. The next thing you want to do is data modeling, right? So by the time you're done transforming your data, you now want to start creating your model. You want to start building relationships. There are different types of relationships, and there are different types of data model that we can build. All right, so we're going to talk about it when we get to this particular module. We'll talk about the star schema, we'll talk about the snowflake schema, we'll talk about relationships and hierarchies, we'll talk about all of these things when it gets to data modeling. But basically, data modeling is how you connect your tables together so that there is a relationship and there can be interactions between the data and it's ready for analysis, right? So the next thing we're going to do, we'll just touch it briefly, which is DAX expression, right? When for the intermediaries or intermediary guys on the call, um, you would, for those that have a little bit of experience with Power BI, you would agree with me that um, when we talk about Power BI is DAX. DAX is Power BI. You would agree with me, right? Power BI is, I mean, yes, there's the part where you have to do your ETL, your modeling, your visualization, you're building your reports and all that. But you see, when we say Power BI, the power of business intelligence is in the DAX. How you are able to manipulate your formulas, write those expressions, create those calculations. That is what Power BI is all about. All right. But for a beginner, we need to take it from the very basic level, which is bringing your data, profiling your data, transforming your data, modeling your data, and visualizing your data. It's possible for you to do your analysis without writing DAX. For beginners, it's possible because people get confused when they get to the part of writing formulas and all of that, right? But it's possible to actually to build your report and do your analysis without writing DAX. All right, we'll get to see all of that, and then you can also still build your report and write DAX expression. If you are building much more complex reports, probably you're trying to build a financial model. I will see if we can do some of those complex reports, but I'll try not to be too advanced for us, right? If you're trying to build like maybe a financial model, you would need your DAX expression there. All right. If you are trying to do your time intelligence analysis, I'll try for us to do some of these examples that I mentioned, especially your time intelligence analysis. You would need your DAX there because DAX is really Power BI. So it's important that you understand DAX. Of course, you're not going to understand everything at once, but the more you use the application, the more you understand how all of these things works. Now, this is the part that interests people the most, which is data visualization. All right, where you want to see the charts, you want to see it moving, you want to also play it, you want to see the discrepancies, you want to be able to um, have a view of what your data is saying. I mean, this is the interesting part. A lot of people love visual. I mean, visualization is also it's a thing for me, right? Because one of the things I love about visualization is the presentation. All right. The presentation. Someone can present a visual in a way that is difficult to interpret. Another person can present the visual in a way that it's easy to interpret. In Power BI, there's also you also do a lot of user experience and user interfacing in Power BI, your UI, your UX, and that is the visualization part. So when you get to this data visualization, you need to take UI and UX into consideration. I think for me, that's one of the parts I love the most. When I work on projects and I'm done with creating my visuals, writing my DAX expression, building my models, and all of those things, right? One major thing I focus on is the user interface and the user experience because I try to sit in the seat of the person who is going to read and interact with the report. I put myself in their shoes. How do I want to present this? How do I want them to view this? How easy will it be for them to navigate through the visuals, through the pages of the report, and all of those things? As a Power BI developer, you are actually or as a Power BI analyst rather, you are actually a developer, all right? And so you can build your report in a way that it looks like an app. It looks like an application, right? You can configure your report in that way. So that's where visualization comes into play because it's about what you see, it's about what you feel, it's about how you interact with the data. um Let me just move on so that I don't get carried away explaining one particular point. Then the next thing is your report and dashboard. So at this point we look at reports and dashboard. Most times for novice they use that word, they interchange that word report and dashboard. They call the report a dashboard, they call the dashboard a report. There's actually a difference. Excuse me. There's a difference between reports and dashboard. There actually is a difference between a report and a dashboard. You're going to learn that on the call, during the course of the training. Then okay, I've said data visualization is my favorite, but again, I think this is another favorite of mine, which is advanced analytics, right? And for the guys that are intermediates, all right, you have a level of knowledge. We're going to go deep into advanced analytics. I really hope we have enough time to practice a lot of things, right? I will try as much as possible to see if we can do regression analysis, right? Regression is where you're using one variable to determine the outcome of another variable. You have your dependent variable, you have your independent variable, and they are trying to create a what if scenario to say that, okay, if this variable is giving me this variable, what will be the outcome of this variable when this variable changes? You get all of those variations, all right. I mean, when we get to advanced analytics, you really appreciate um statistics, right? Some of those things that we learned in school, mathematics, further mathematics, statistics, when you do things like your integration, your differentiation, you see all of those formulas that we just write, we learn, we cram, and we pour. We're going to see the real life application when we get to this portion of advanced analytics, right? But I mean, they are actually very interesting stuff that you could play around with. But I really hope that we have enough time to go through all of that. But again, like I said, I will try to go as I'll try to go as slow as possible so that I don't get you lost in the class. And I think finally, which is another important part of this learning track, is security and data assets management, right? Data security is a thing. We have bodies and organizations that actually ensure that people's data is safe and secure. There are data privacy bodies that ensure all of these things. So we're going to talk about data privacy. We're going to talk about data security, how you can enforce security on your reports. All right, how you can also manage some of your data assets. I'll explain to you what all of these data assets are over time. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So for today's class, is going to be more of an introduction, all right, and we'll now go into the hands-on after now, all right. But before we go into the next portion of my presentation, do we have questions based on the objective? Are there any important questions that you would want to ask? I'll take that for another 1 to 2 minutes and then we'll move on with the class. Remember, I promised you that I would stop at intervals to answer questions. Okay, so I can see a question. Please, how can we get the data set to be used? So, all the resources that you need will be provided to you before the class or after the class. The administrator would communicate everything across to you through the LMS. So I'll see if there are any further questions. If not, we're going to carry on. Okay, I can't see any questions popping up at the moment. So let's move on. So I'll take questions at the next stop. So let's carry on. So I hope we're all good. So let's move on to the next. So let's talk about business intelligence. Okay, someone said they want to understand the difference between data profiling and data transformation. So data profiling is you're not doing anything technical. You are just understanding the data. It's like reading through a note. You are trying to understand the data. How many rows are in this table? How many columns are in this table? All right. What is the data type for each of the columns in this table? What is the name of the table? What are the names of the columns on this table? Are there missing values in the rows of or in each column in the table? Are there errors inside the rows or in the cells within the table? That's basically what data profiling is. You are understanding the state and the structure of the data. But when it now comes to transformation, based on your intel from the profiling, you now want to begin to correct those discrepancies. You want to adjust the state of the data. You want to improve its accuracy. That's what data transformation is. So in data transformation, you are actually working on the data to change the state of the data. You are removing columns that are not needed. You are creating columns that are needed. You are removing rows that are not needed. You are inserting values to maybe improve certain values that were inserted wrongly. All right. So all of those things are what data transformation is all about. So it is different from profiling. Profiling is you understanding the state of the data. Okay. So let's go straight into business intelligence. I won't be taking any questions again till the next break. So let's go straight into business intelligence. I know last week Musi already explained data storage to us, right? And he explained how that we have different data repository, data sources, or data storage system. It's basically a place where you store your data. All right. Simply put, it's a repository or a system where your data is being stored. Okay, and we have different storage systems, right? The common ones are Excel, SQL. Those are like some very, very common ones that you're going to be conversant with, but your data is stored in different repository databases, on-prem, within a physical location, in the cloud, available online. So your data can be stored in an application. All right. So Google Analytics, your spreadsheets, your data can be stored in different repository, right? But for an analyst, regardless of where your data, okay, I just got something now. I've noted something now. Regardless of where your data is stored, all right, all you need to know is how to connect to the data, to extract the data, and then you begin your profiling and transformation and modeling. Okay, so let's move on to um, Microsoft Power BI. So I know for some of us here, we are used to Power BI. For some of us, we are not. We've been hearing about it, and this is an opportunity for us to learn about Power BI. But one of the major goal of Power BI is to bring intelligence to your business. That's basically one of the goal of Power BI. It's a business tool, right? And the goal is to bring intelligence to your business. That's why it's called Power BI, the power of business intelligence, right? Now, I just explained to us how that we have a wide range of data repository like your Excel, your SQL database, your Salesforce, your SharePoint, your Exchange, your Oracle, your Access, your Mailchimp, your Google Analytics, your Facebook. You have hundreds of data repository. Your data can be stored in all of these repository, but you see, you won't be able to make sense out of that data until it goes through a process called ETL, where you begin to extract the data from the repository where it is stored. You begin to extract it, you transform it, you load it, you model it, and then you are able to build interactive insights from the data stored in different data repository. Now, one of the interesting thing about Microsoft Power BI is that regardless of where your data is stored, your data can be stored in unrelated data sources. All right, so it can be stored in five different data sources. So maybe within an organization, a department is storing data in Excel, another department is storing data in SQL, another department is storing their data on SharePoint, another department is storing their data on Google Analytics, another department is storing their data on Exchange. All right. As an analyst, you can go to those five different data sources, extract the data, bring them into a singular repository, and then you begin to carry out your processing, your modeling, and your analysis. But remember, the goal is to provide intelligence to the business, right? So you have your data stored in different sources, and then you're able to create charts, reports that gives you more insight into what the business is saying. The data is actually the life of every business. All right. Data is the life of every business. Data is the life of every organization. If you want to kill a business, you can use data to kill it. If you want to improve a business, if you want a business to thrive, you can use data to do all of that. So the goal here is to provide intelligence into your data. Now, when we say you're providing intelligence, so I think one thing I failed to mention is the fact that um, as a data analyst, you must also understand that um, you must also understand that you are a storyteller. Okay, you are in the business of telling a story from the data. So as a data analyst, you are a storyteller. That's one important thing you need to know about, because data analysis is not just about creating reports. No, no. Remember, I said it is a means of what? Providing intelligence into the business, right? You are providing intelligence, you're bringing insight so that the end users can make informed strategic business decision. That's the goal. You want the users to be able to make, the stakeholders to be able to make informed business decision. So for them to be able to make that decision, you are telling a story with the data. So it's not just about creating a fine chart and giving it very fine colors. No, it's about telling a story. Each of the charts on your report is saying something, and that's what you want to emphasize. It is saying something, and that's what you want to emphasize. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is what type of story am I telling? Okay, as an analyst. So you see that there's a different perspective, all right, as a data analyst. It's not just about building report. Now I've said it's about telling a story. So you want to understand what type of story am I telling. That's the first place to start, so that you know how to go about creating your visuals. You want to understand what type of stories am I telling, what point am I trying to highlight and emphasize for the report readers, for the stakeholders. Okay. Now, the first type of story you can tell, there are five different types of story you can tell. The first one is a summarization of the historical data. Remember, you are working with data, so there is something available for you to work with. So you can do a descriptive analysis where you are summarizing an historical data. You are taking a data, something that has happened in the past, you are taking that data and you are describing to us what has happened. So you're basically summarizing historical data. It's called a descriptive analysis. And descriptive analysis is the most common form of analysis that you can perform. Okay, it is the most common form of analysis that you can perform. The descriptive analysis, you are telling us what has happened in the past. You are answering the question. You can, if you're taking notes, you can just write down your notes. You're answering the question, what happened? Okay, you're answering the question, what happened. That's basically what you're doing with a descriptive analysis. The second type of story you can tell is to explain the historical data. You are not just telling us what has happened, you are telling us why it happened. You are doing a diagnostic. Are we good? You're telling us why it happened, a diagnostic analysis. You're taking that same historical data. You are not just telling us what happened, you are telling us why. Can you see the difference? So, the first type of story you are telling, excuse me, excuse me, the first type of story you're telling is what has happened. The second, which is a diagnostic analysis, is to tell us why it happened. So you're answering the question, why? I need to pay attention to what I'm saying, because by the time we get into the visualization phase, I would show you this type of storytelling, descriptive and diagnostic. Now, the next is the predictive analytics. The next is the predictive analytics. Now, I want you to pay attention to my words. The first is what? Descriptive analysis. The second is diagnostic analysis. The third is the predictive analytics. Now, you notice that for some type of storytelling, I use the word analysis, and for some other, I use the word analytics. When you're doing a predictive analytics, you're doing a forecast. You are forecasting futuristic data. Let me tell you how predictive analytics works. You take the historical data from your descriptive and diagnostic. You look at the trend in that data. You look at the pattern in that data. And based on the trend and pattern, you are able to predict, forecasts what the trend and pattern will look like in the future. You see that this is very interesting. So you're telling me that I can take an historical data, something that happened in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I can study the trends and the pattern, and I can predict what will happen in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months. Exactly what I'm telling you. You can take historical data, study the trend and the pattern, and you can use it to do a prediction. Now, let me tell you a story a little bit here. Something that I mentioned earlier. Now, remember I said something that I would love for us to do something like different types of, so because this is an advanced analysis class, right? We can do like a regression analysis, right? A regression analysis is also a predictive, is a form of predictive analytics. Yeah, a regression analysis is also someone said this won't be like forex. Actually, it is. All right. It's say anything that has to do with forecast prediction. It is data that is behind it. When you take your phone and then you're talking to, I don't know who you're talking to now. Is it okay Google or Siri or Alexa or Alexis or whatever it is, and then you are asking for weather updates? How do you think they are able to tell you what the weather will look like in the next few hours? What is happening is, or even something as simple as your weather forecast, when you go on your local TV stations, for example, and then you're seeing weather forecast that okay, tomorrow is going to be cloudy, it's going to be rain, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be all of that, right? How do you think they come up with that conclusion? What they do is to study the weather. They are working. It's not magic, it's not witchcraft. They are studying the data. There is a data behind that forecast. They are looking at the trends and pattern, and they are using it to create a prediction of what will happen. All right. Now, there's something called a model. A model, model. There's something called a model that you use for your forecasting, for making predictions. Now, I made mention of regression analysis. That's a model. And I'll give you a simple regression analysis model. Can somebody type in the chat the equation of a straight line? Let's start with that. For those of you that did mathematics, so those of you that ran away from mathematics, further maths, it has come to meet you again in the future. Okay. Yeah, I love that. Prediction based on trends and pattern. Thank you, Lusoji. Can someone drop in the chat window um, the equation of a straight line? Okay, I can see ax plus b. Okay, I love. Okay, good. Y equals to mx plus c. So I mean, everybody's actually correct, right? Yeah, ax plus b. Yes. So yeah, but I'm gonna stick with. You can say y equals to ax plus b. You can say y equals to mx plus c. Now it's okay. Thank you for all the responses. Now you see, as simple as you know, as simple as that formula is, that is actually a model for prediction and forecasting. That is a predictive analytics model. But you won't know. Now, this is the issue, right? They teach us all of these things in school, but they never tell us the application. They never teach us, or maybe they do, or they never emphasize, right? But I mean, for me, they never taught me the application of all of these things. As simple as y equals to mx plus c is, it is actually a model for predicting the future. It's a model for forecasting. Yes, that's actually the how do I put it? That's like the goal, the end result. So y equals to mx plus c. So when you break it down, that your y equals to mx plus c, it's a model, it's a regression, it's a model for a simple linear regression analysis. I'll take it again. Y equals to mx plus c is the model for a simple linear regression analysis where you have two variables. You have what is known as the dependent variable. You have what is known as the independent variable. So you have the dependent variable, you have the independent variable, you have the slope, and then you have the constant. You see, those are the four pieces in that formula. You have your dependent variable. It means that the outcome of this is depending on something else. You have the dependent variable, you have the independent variable, all right. You have the slope, which is the change in the variables, in the values, and then you have the constants. All right. So now when we talk about regression analysis, for you to be able to do a regression analysis, your data points needs to be related. All right, it needs to be, so there's relation, there's regression, there's correlation, a whole lot of all of this statistical analysis and model and all of that, right? But let me just focus on regression now. There needs to be a relationship between the two variables. All right, there needs to be a relationship between the independent variable and your dependent variable, the dependent variable and the independent variable, right? So there needs to be a relationship to say that, okay, this variable is depending on this variable, so they have a relationship. Now based on that, you can now take your historical data. Remember, we've said that for you to be able to do your predictive analytics, you need your historical data, your descriptive and your diagnostics. Now, you take your historical data and then you run your historical data so that you are able to get your slope, the change in values in variables, and your constants. So your y, which is your dependent variable, it's depending on x. All right, then you now calculate. So you have historical data of different y's and different x. So remember, in mathematics they'll say that if y is 1, what is x? If y is 2, what? Or they can give you different value of x and y, x and y, x and y, x and y, can give you like different values, right? So based on the values of x and y, you will now carry your graph. You do a y-axis and all of this thing I'm saying is going to make sense later. Just humor me for a bit. You do a y-axis, you do an x-axis, right? So when you do your y-axis and your x-axis, you will now say when y is 5, x is 3, then you draw the line of where y is 5, and where x is 3, then you draw the line so that they can meet. Then you take another value of x and y, then you plot all the values of x and y. When you've gotten all of those points, you now draw a straight line on your graph book, right? From that straight line, you will now do a slope, a horizontal and a vertical line, right, where they are touching each other, all right, perpendicular, and then you get the value of y1, y2, x1, x2. Then you now calculate your m, which is your slope, to say that when your y2 minus your y1 divided by your is it your x2 minus x1 divided by y2 minus y1, you calculate that slope. Then your c is now that your line of all your x and y dots, that line where it is touching the axis, the y-axis, you take it as your constant. So to say that, another way to calculate is to say when x is 0, what is the value of y? So now that you've been able to calculate your slope, which is your m, and your constant, which is your c, you know historical y because it is given. You know historical x because it is given. Based on historical x and y, you can see I'm using the word historical because that historical is what we do in descriptive and diagnostic analysis. But we want to do a predictive. What is driving the predictive analytics is the constant and the slope, the slope and the constant, that intercept. So when you know your historical x, your historical y, and you've been able to use historical x and y to calculate your slope and your constant, your intercepts, you can now use it to do a future x, a future y based on a known value of x, and that is what you call a forecast or a predictive model. So you know historical x, you know historical y, you've been able to use historical x and y to calculate your slope and your intercepts. Based on that, if you take any value of x that is not historical, if you take any value of x based on your slope and your intercept, you can predict the value of y. You can predict the value of y. Now, I've said historical x, historical y, slope, intercepts, known value of x, predict the value of y. Let's bring it into a real life scenario. How does this put food on your table, right? I know that's the question most people will be asking. How does this put food on your table? Let's look at how it does. You are an analyst and you have gathered data in a particular industry of people that have worked in that industry, their years of experience, and the salaries they earn. You've been able to, you did a questionnaire and then you took a survey out, you gave it to like 100 people to fill. All right, that's your sample size. And they filled the survey to say, I have 7 years of experience in this industry, and this is how much I'm earning. This one says, I have 5 years of experience in this in the same industry. This is how much I'm earning. And that person says, okay, I have 3 years of experience in this industry. This is how much I'm earning. So you've been able to get the years of experience you've been able to get up to from 0 to 10 years of experience, and you've been able to get how much they are earning. Are you following me? Now, the amount you will earn, pay attention with me, please. The amount you will, even if this is what we do today, I'm sure you'd have learned something. The amount you will earn is dependent on the years of experience. The amount, the salary you will collect is dependent on the years of experience. So if my year of experience is 5, how much salary am I collecting? Let's say with 5 years of experience, you're already collecting 600K, 500K salary. If your years of experience is 3 years of experience, let's say you're already collecting 250 to 300K salary. If your years of experience is like 7 years of experience, let's say you're already collecting between 1.5 to 2M monthly salary, something like that. I'm just giving you like a fictitious data, right? Depending on the industry, right? So you've been able to gather the salary that people will earn from 0 years of experience to 10 years of experience. Now, what is your dependent variable? The dependent variable is the salary. What is your independent variable? The years of experience. So the salary is depending on the years of experience. Are you following me, guys? The salary you earn is depending on the years of experience. So your salary is your Y. The years of experience is your X. The salary you would earn is depending on the years of experience. So your salary is your dependent variable. Your years of experience is your independent variable. All right, and your salary is depending on years of experience. So you've been able to gather data of 100 people to say if they are earning this, if they have these years of experience, this is the salary they will earn. If they have these years of experience X, this is the salary they will earn Y. You now use the known historical data, so you can use that X and Y now, salaries and years of experience, to do a descriptive analysis to say that people that are earning between 0 to 2 years of experience, people that have 0 to 2 years of experience, their salary is between this range and this range. People that have 3 to 4 years of experience, their salary is this range and this range. People that have 5 to 6 years of experience, you are doing an histogram or a bar chart. What you've just done is descriptive analysis. Do you understand what I'm saying? What you've just done is descriptive analysis. You can do a diagnostics to say that the salary, as the years of experience is increasing, the salary is also doing what? The salary is also increasing. Do you understand? You can even calculate what is the rate of, oh God, what is the rate of increase of salary per year of experience? Do you understand what I'm saying? You can calculate it. What is the rate of increase per year of experience? What's the rate of increase of salary, right? So you've already done your descriptive, your diagnostics, right? Now, how does this now give us a predictive analytics? Based on your known years of experience and salary, you can now write a model using the equation of a straight line, because when you plot the graph, you will have like a straight line. You can now calculate your slope, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. You can calculate all of that. Then you can now calculate your intercepts. What is y when x is 0, or when you draw the line, where does it touch the y-axis? So when you have your intercept and you have your slope, you can now do a prediction based on that. Now, this is where it gets interesting. To say that I only gathered information of 0 to 10 years of experience. What if, pay attention, I just gave you a parameter. What if? So you are about to do a what if analysis, which is a forecast or a prediction, to say what if the year of experience is 15. Remember, you only gathered data for 0 to 10 years of experience, but based on that, you can predict what 15 years of experience salary will what. So your X is what? 15 years of experience, but we don't know how much salary that will earn because we've not sampled data for that years of experience. But based on the trend of 0 to 10 years of experience, based on that trend, you can now say Y, which is the salary of 15 years, is equals to X, which is 15 years of experience, multiplied by the slope M plus the intercept or the constant C. You know you've already calculated your M and you've calculated your C, and your X is what? The futuristic years of experience, which is 15 years. So it will be 15 times X plus C. When you have your X and your C and you add it to your 15, it will predict how much salary you will earn at 15 years. Does it make sense, guys? If it makes sense, can you put make sense on the chat window for me to see? Let's have it. Let's have it. Does it make sense, guys? All right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. So you can see that that is an example of a predictive analytics to say that if the salary if the years of experience is 15, I can predict how much salary I will be earning based on the slope and the constants that my historical data has given. Of course, There's, it is a simple linear regression, right? This is called simple linear regression. There are some other factors that would also Hi guys. Sorry, my internet took me off. I already kept a disclaimer at the start. Apologies. Yeah, so that happened. I was so sorry about that. So sorry. I mentioned it at the beginning that it's possible that my internet might trip off. I'll try and find a fix to that before the next class. Just bear with me for now. I apologize. I know it has probably affected your your flu, but let's just get back to it. So I'm going to get back to presenting my screen. Um, just give me a moment, please. Sorry for that break in transmission. Share screen. Hide this. Okay, so I think now that let me see. First of all, can you confirm that you can see my screen, please? Okay, can anybody hear me now? Can you confirm that you can see my screen, please? Okay, so I believe you can hear me and I believe you can see my screen. Yes, we can see some. Okay, awesome. That's great. So I've explained predictive analytics already, and I've given us an example and also a real life scenario of how it works. But I mean, I was going to say something before the internet took me off that. Of course, there are going to be some other factors to take into consideration, right? There's going to be some what's that word now? There will be some trying to get the correct word now. Um, if I remember that word, I would chip it in. It just went off my. Um, um, I guess the internet actually threw me off balance a bit. So let's go to prescriptive um, analytics, right? So this also has to do with future data, just like the prediction, right? The prescriptive basically is what you do to optimize that future data. All right, is what you do to optimize the data. So you've already made a prediction. All right, but you know that for that prediction there's going to be of awesome. I just remembered the word now, margin of error. I don't know if we have. I didn't study statistics, please. I read physics. I read physics, right? So I didn't study statistics, right? But I don't know if we have people that maybe there's anybody on the call that did statistics or mathematics. There's something we call margin of error. So remember, the model I gave you is just a simple model. All right. There are more complex models, right, where you would also take into consideration the the margin of error and all of that, right? But I just give you a simple model and we didn't take into consideration margin of error. For example, the years of experience and salary scenario I gave you, there will be some other factors to consider, right? So margin of errors and all of those things. When you're doing a multilinear regression analysis, not just a simple linear, you're not just looking at two variables, you're looking at multiple variables, right? And all of that. But now there's something called the margin of error, basically. Then when we're talking about the prescriptive analytics, you've done a forecast like the one we did to say, if I have 15 years of experience, how much salary will I earn? You now want to do a prescriptive analytics, which is you optimizing that futuristic data to say that what do I need to put in place for me to be able to hit that target, that forecast that I've met. Do you understand? So if XYZ are in place, then the chances of meeting that futuristic target can increase by a particular percentage. So prescriptive is the factors that needs to be in place for you to be able to achieve what you forecasted. Now let's bring it to a business. You've analyzed your sales data for the last 5 years, and then as the data analyst, you've been able to draw a forecast to say that based on the trends and pattern of our sales in the last 5 years, this is what we are forecasting to make in the next 12 months. All right. And then you now put an optimization there, which is a prescriptive analytics, to now say that if XYZ is in place, the chances of making this forecast or hitting this target or this forecasted data would increase by a particular percentage. You see, those XYZ factors that you added to those conditions, that's what we call the prescriptive analytics. So you're looking at what needs to be in place for you to be able to optimize your data or meet the said targets. So you are using insights from your predictive analytics to give us the data driven decision that can be made. And the reasons why you also do a prescriptive analytics is to edge against uncertainties. All right. So this and this and this can be put in place should in case this and this and this should happen. Right. So you're trying to also edge against uncertainty. That's what we call the prescriptive analytics, right? Let me just try to move faster because I spent a lot of time on explaining this. Then we also have the cognitive analytics. This is where you learn from the data. Cognitive analytics. I went through, okay, yeah, let me just skip that. Cognitive analytics is where basically you learn from the data, all right? In cognitive analytics, it will help you learn from what might happen if the circumstances should change. What would happen? So you are learning from the data. Now, let me just chip this in and explain something to us, right? Now, think of a robot that has a bow and an arrow. Think of a robot that has a bow and an arrow, and it has a target in front of it, like a bull's eye that it is trying to hit. Now, the robot takes the bow and the arrow, and then it draws the string or draws the bow, and then shoots the arrow and misses the target. Now, this is what the machine will do. It will take the angle of elevation at which it placed its hands when it shot the arrow. It will take the force that was applied. It will record the direction the arrow was facing when the bow was facing when it shot the arrow and missed the target. All right, it will record it. It will take another arrow again at a different angle, a different elevation, a different direction, a different force. It will shoot the arrow, it will miss the target. Now the robot will record all of those data again. Now it keeps trying and trying and trying and trying and trying with different arrows till it is able to hit the target. Now, when the robot is able to hit the target, it also records that data. Now, guess what? Any given time, the robot wants to shoot an arrow to hit that target, there is a 99.9% accuracy that it will hit the target because it has learned from the data. That's what you call machine learning. I don't know if you guys have heard of the word machine. Obviously, you've heard of the word machine learning, but that's what you call machine learning, where the robot is able to learn from the data over a period of trials. And so, anytime it is to hit that target or to hit any of the missed targets, let's say the target has shifted to one of the target that it's missed, it will be able to hit it because it has tried out that example before. So there's cognitive analytics where you've already run different scenarios and simulations, and so you can learn from the data. So if you want to hit a particular target, you can say these are the variables that we need to push into. If you want to hit a particular target, you say so you want to go and sell in a particular region. You are telling them that these are the kind of products you should push into this market. This is the kind of channels you should use to sell the products, because over time you've been able to learn from the data. So that's basically what cognitive analytics is all about. Now, for some of these types of analysis or storytelling that you have on my screen, for some of them, you can do them within Power BI. For some of them, you need to go into Microsoft Azure to be able to run some of them. But for the ones that we can do in Power BI, I'm going to show you how we can do them. Descriptive, diagnostics, prescriptive. I'm going to show you how we can do all of these things, right? But let's move on to what we have left for today. But I believe we've learned a lot already just from the little that I've been able to share with us on the call. Now, as a data analyst, now that I know the type of story that I am performing, now that I know the type of story that I'm telling rather, I want to know as a data analyst, what tasks will I be performing? Number one, you're going to be learning how to prepare the data. You're going to be, I think there's a lag between my slide projecting. Number one task is you're going to be learning how to prepare your data. So this process of prepare, whenever it comes up, I don't know if it comes if it's already up now. But this process of preparing your data involves your ETL, which I know you must have heard in the last 4 weeks and even now. ETL means extract, transform, load. So it's the process of preparing your data. When you extract the data from the data source, you transform the data and you load the data. You extract the data, you transform the data, and you load the data. That is the prepare task. As a data analyst, this is something that the first point of, so let's imagine something. Assuming you just launched your Power BI desktop now and you want to start doing data analysis, the first thing you want to do is your ETL, extract the data. Of course, when you extract the data, you profile it right. Then you now transform the data and then you load it for modeling and for visualization. So it's called the prepare task. Now that you've been able to do the prepare task, the next task is the model task. The model task. The model task is where you now begin to build relationship. I mentioned it during the objective section, where you now begin to build relationships. You begin to build relationship. There are different types of model. You will hear things like your star schema. You will hear things like your snowflake schema. In your model, there are different types of relationship. You will hear things like your one to many, your many to one, your one to one, your many to many. Different types of relationship, bi-directional, single directional. That's that all of those things is called model. Now, I just said a lot of words that probably the beginners might not understand, but maybe the intermediary guys understand. When we get to each of these sections, we are going to talk about it in more details. Remember, I'm just doing an introduction today. I'm just putting water on the ground just for us to have a soft landing, right? So we're still going to dive into prepare model and all of that, right? But by the time you are done with your prepare model task, the next task is to visualize. Now, it is following a pattern. You cannot model if you have not prepared. If you've not done your ETL, extract, transform, load. So you need to do your model before you do your ETL. So you need to do your ETL rather, I beg your pardon. You need to do your ETL rather before you do your model. The same thing, you need to do your model before you can visualize. If you don't model your data and you visualize your data, you are going to be you. So there's something my friend used to say. She would say, as a developer, don't cook beans. If you cook beans, your application will purge. So in Yoruba, they will say oti sewa. So if you visualize your data before modeling your data, you've cooked beans and your reports will purge. Yeah, your reports will purge. So you need to model first. When you've modeled, you can now visualize. Now, when we get into the lab, the practical session, I will show you what will happen if you visualize without modeling. I will show you just so you can see. So you model. Now, somebody asked about DAX. When you are doing your modeling, that is where your DAX also comes into play. Because remember, modeling is not just building relationships, it's not just building hierarchies, it's not just about your star schema and your snowflake schema. Modeling also involves your calculation. You see that y equals to mx plus c. How do you think you will write y equals to mx plus c in Power BI? You will use DAX. You will use DAX to calculate your y, sum of y. You will use DAX to calculate your x, sum of x. You will use DAX to calculate your slope. You will use DAX to calculate your intercept. You get, so when I say y equals to mx, when I say it's a model, model also includes your formula. So model is not just relationship, hierarchies, and all of those groupings. Model also involves your DAX. DAX is the acronym for data analysis expression. That's also modeling, where your calculations are, because those are the things that will make your visual. No, someone is saying no sound. Okay, is the sound back now? How about now, please confirm? Can anybody hear me? I can't hear you, sir. Okay, he's back. Okay, someone said back now. Okay, so you can hear me now, right? Okay, welcome back. Oh, awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Great, 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 great. So we have the visualize tax. We have the visualize tax. Very important. So it is after you've modeled that you can now start doing your visualization. You can now start creating your visuals and all of that. Then the next thing is your analyze tax. Your analyze tax. Analyze is now where you begin to interpret. That's where you're now making your informed business decision. You are interpreting. That's the analyze tax. Oh, what is the data saying? Oh, how can we improve it? Oh, so we should go in this direction. Oh, okay, so we should withdraw that product from the market. Oh, okay, so we should increase the price by this percentage. You get, so that's the analyze tax. So you're now beginning to do interpretation. All right. Now, what is the final and also very important is known as the manage, the manage tax. The managed tax is where you are enforcing security. Remember, I said data is the blood line or lifeline of any business organization. Data is one of the most important assets of an organization. So you want to ensure that your data asset is secured. When I was taking the objective, I said I'm going to tell you what data assets is. Your data assets is your semantic model. I'm going to explain semantic model very shortly. Your data asset is your semantic model. Your data asset is your report. Your data asset is your dashboard. Your data asset is your workspace. You want to ensure that all of these things are secure. So one of the things I'm going to be teaching us during the course of this training in the next 4 weeks is how to also manage your data assets. It's how to manage your data assets. Okay. Um, ooh, let's see. So let me quickly, I'm going to take questions, right? And then I will ask you my questions. So let me quickly talk about the roles in the data space. Because as a data analyst, you also want to understand people that you want to understand how. As a data analyst, you want to understand the people that you're working with, and you want to understand how their work affects yours. So I'm going to talk about the roles in the data space. What role am I performing? Okay, I'm going to explain that very briefly, and then we'll take some questions. So the first role is the business analyst, which I already explained to us last week Wednesday very briefly. I explained that the business analyst is more concerned about the business side of things. All right. The business analyst is analyzing the business. How is the business performing? Is this venture going to be profitable? What are the things that we need to do to guide against risk in this business? How can we mitigate the risks in this business? How can we ensure that this business thrive? What are the research that we need to do? the business analyst is concerned about that. And one key thing that affects the business analyst in all what we are doing is that the business analyst is also an expert, or also very good when it comes to interpreting the data that comes from your visualization. I'll repeat that again. The business analyst is very good in interpreting the data that comes from visualization, because they also want to make decisions that will impact the business. So when they do their research, they get to read reports, they also make decisions that will impact the business. So the business analyst is more of a all right, that is concerned about the business. Then we also have the second role in that space, which is the role of the data analyst. Now you will notice that on my slide, I kept something in bracket, the PL300. Now, just for me to mention that I am also using the Microsoft curriculum to teach us this Power BI course, because Microsoft Power BI is Microsoft application, right? So it only makes sense that I also use their curriculum to teach us, right? So we have the data analyst, the data analyst we have the data analyst. Now, the data analyst is more concerned with the data itself. That's all of those tasks that I mentioned: the prepare, the model, the visualize, the analyze, the manage. The data analyst is concerned with all of that. Now, let me just chip this in a little bit. In some advanced country, this data analyst role can be broken down into 3 or 4 or 5 different bits, such that in some countries, your job as a data analyst is just to do ETL. That's all you do. Your job is just to extract the data, transform the data, and load the data. Another person, your own job can just be to do modeling. Yeah, all you just do is to build models, build relationship, write the calculations, and all of that. That's the only thing you do. And in fact, you will go beyond Power Query. You would use Dark Studios, you would use Copilot, you use a whole lot of other tools to build model and to write your dark queries and all of that. That could be the job role of another person. And then another person, as a data analyst, the only thing you'll be doing is visualization. If that's the only thing you'll be doing, your own is just to connect to the model that somebody else has already prepared and just start building the visuals, build the report and the dashboard, publish them, share them. That's the only thing you'll be doing. But if you want to be a successful data analyst in Nigeria, don't go that route because you are in Nigeria. Learn everything. Learn how to do your ETL. Learn how to build models and write complex calculation. Learn how to visualize your data. Learn how to analyze your data. Learn how to manage your data assets. Learn everything. In fact, if it's possible to learn some other, well, it's not necessary actually, because the data analyst role just covers that. You don't necessarily need to go into some other advanced things, which I'm going to talk about later, right? But my point is, there are some countries you would work in where all that is required of you is just to do ETL. There are some places you work in, all that is required of you is just to do modeling. Some places, all that is required, that modeling to involve creating relationship and writing that calculation. Some places, all that is required of you is just to do visualization, right? Yeah. But if you are looking for a job as a data analyst in Nigeria, you need to have holistic knowledge of all of these things, because even the job that does not concern your portfolio, HR will include it as part of the job description. The person must have 15 years of experience. You must know this, know that, know this, know kilo day. I mean, that's just by the way. So basically, that's the role of the data analyst. Let's quickly move on to some other roles. We have the data. So, I forgot to mention, for a data analyst, if you want to be Microsoft certified as a data analyst, then the course you need to take is the PL300. At the beginning of this training, I saw someone put something on the chat window that had to do with PL300. Yeah. So this training is actually also preparing you for the PL300 Microsoft exam, which is one reason why you should pay attention to the things that we are discussing here, right? So the exam by Microsoft is the PL300. Then we also have the data engineering. So this is, remember I said something that in some countries all you do is ETL, right? That job role is the work of a data engineer. Yes. That's the work of a data engineer, where all that is required for you is to extract the data, transform the data, and load it into the warehouse. So your data can be scattered in different data sources and repository. As the analyst, all you will do is to go into those different repository and extract the data. Then you will now transform the data, and then you build something called a data warehouse, where you've now been able to structure all the data inside that warehouse, and you will lock it there. And that's the end of your job. So what the data engineer does is ETL. They do a lot of ETL, they build the data warehouse, and they store the already transformed data there, and they keep it there. So that when the data analyst wants to do report, he will just go to the warehouse, connect to the data. You don't need to do any ETL. The data engineer has already carried out the ETL for you. You just go there and you start visualizing your data. Because sometimes when they do the ETL, they already model the data down for you. And if the data has not been modeled down, you can extract it or connect to the data, extract it, and then just do your only modeling and visualization. So all those transforming this, turning the head upside down, shaking the leg, breaking the funnel, all of those things you won't need to do there, because the engineer has taken care of it. That's why I said in some advanced countries, you already have some people do some bit of those job. All right, but for a data analyst, there's nothing wrong with learning how to do ETL, because we're going to learn it on this course, right? So the professional exam by Microsoft to be a Microsoft certified data engineer is DP203. Yeah, DP203. Um, then let's move on to the next role, which is the data scientists. Those guys that want to do a lot of forecasts and write complex models. What does a scientist do? A scientist performs experiments. They want to drill down on your data. They want to bring out more value. Sorry, I had to put my device on DND. So the data scientist wants to bring out more value from the data. All right, they want to bring out more value from the data. They want to do a lot of forecasting and predictions and all of that, right? That's what the data scientist does. So the certification exam for that is DP 100. And in most cases, you would need to learn Python, all right, because you don't want to use only Power BI to do all of that, right? You want to go more deeper into data science. So that's where you use your Python, you use your R and some more programming tools to be able to get that done. But I mean, for information's sake, you know that, oh, this is what the business analyst does, this is what the data engineer does, this is what the data scientist does. In fact, where the data analyst stops is where the data scientist starts from. All right. So the data scientist can connect to your model and bring out more insights and more value from the semantic model. So where the data analyst stops is where the data scientist starts from. So just take note of that. All right. Let's move on to the final role in the data space, which is the database administrator. When you hear the word admin, what comes to your mind? Somebody that is in charge. All right. So these are the guys that gives you access to the database. These are the guys that revoke your access to the database. These are the guys that ensure that the database system is optimal, whether it is on-prem or in the cloud. They ensure that the database infrastructure is optimal at every point in time. They give you access, revoke your access. So imagine as a data analyst, your manager has told you to build a report. Now, you know that the data engineer has already done the ETL for you. So you don't need to do ETL, right? So the data engineer can tell you that when you connect to the database, go to this table, go to this table, go to that table. That's all you need. So you just go to those specific tables to extract the data. Now, for you to be able to extract the data from those tables, you need the username and password to the database. The database administrator is the one that will give you that access, that right, that privilege for you to say, okay, use this IP, use these login details to be able to get data, from the database, right? So the database administrator provides you with the credentials that is needed to access the database system, and the data engineer points you to which table, which resource you need to connect to. And once you do that, you just extract the data, do your modeling and your visualization, and then you are good to go. So you see how all of these roles affect one another, and by the time you as a data analyst you are done, the data scientist can pick up from where you stopped and bring out more insight and more value from the data. And then by the time both the data analyst and the data scientist are done, the business analyst can pick it up and do interpretation. Are we good? So the professional certification for you to be a database administrator is DP 300. DP 300. So I'm going to stop here and take questions, all right, from us. So I'm sorry if you had dropped a question on the chat window and somebody had not responded to it. Can you please drop your questions again? I will take it. So someone is saying, is it possible for one to write Microsoft PL 300 exam with only Power BI knowledge? 100% possible. PL 300 is Microsoft certified Power BI analyst. So all you need for PL 300 is Microsoft Power BI. All you need, I repeat, all you need for PL 300 is Power BI. That's Power BI. PL 300 is focused on Power BI. All right. If you want to do SQL, then you're thinking of DP 203. All right. You're thinking of the P300. You're thinking of all of those other ones. More questions. Tell us about the data analysis exam. Yeah, that's the PL300. Basically, Microsoft will test your knowledge on how to, on the 5 tasks of the data analyst, how to prepare your data, which is your ETL. Microsoft will test your knowledge on how to model your data. They will ask you questions about data modeling, about building relationships. They will ask you scenario-based questions. They will test your knowledge on how to visualize your data. So in visualizing your data, questions on what type of visual to use to tell a particular story. They will ask you questions on how to manage your data asset. That's your Power BI service, which I'm still going to talk about in more detail. So your knowledge will be tested on all of those things. Someone is asking, um, someone is asking, can I be able to use my phone to do all of this? You need a laptop, because the next section I'm going to be explaining now is going to shed more light on that. Is Power BI the same as PowerPoint? No, it is not the same. PowerPoint is for presentation. Power BI is for building reports. But you can integrate Power BI and PowerPoint together. I'm going to emphasize more on that. But let me quickly speak on the other question. You need a laptop because you will install Power BI desktop on your laptop. All right, so you need a laptop to do that. There's a part where your phone can come in, but as a developer, your phone cannot come in there. So let's talk about Power BI. Is SQL related to Power BI? Yes, SQL is a data repository. Power BI connects to SQL to be able to fetch the data to analyze. Are we going to cover Power BI service? Yes, I'm going to cover Power BI service. DP300 is all about SQL, right? Yes, DP300 is database administrator, and it's all about SQL. Same with DP203, which is about data engineering. So let me quickly answer that question on Power BI and PowerPoint. So you can integrate your Power BI and PowerPoint together. Remember, I told you that one of my favorite portion is data visualization, right? Now, this is the trick. I'm already giving you guys my personal tricks and tips, right? But don't worry, I will give it to you guys. That's why you're here. I use PowerPoint inside Power BI. So when it comes to UI, user experience, and most especially user interface, I do my interface, my report background in PowerPoint. Then I save it and then I import it into Power BI, right? So I go to PowerPoint because as a business analyst, I did a lot of PowerPoint presentation, right? Because I had to do a lot of sales pitch, a lot of decks, and a lot of slides, right? So I learned how to use. If you see my very first PowerPoint presentation, it was scrap, but guess what? I kept getting better. It took me years, right? Because most of these things are self-taught, and I had to learn on the job. I didn't have somebody that will sit down and say, "This is how you would do this." Is what I didn't have that. I didn't have that privilege. Funny enough, sadly, so I had to learn all of that on my own, right? And I got so good with PowerPoint that in my Power BI, I do my report background in PowerPoint. I save it as an SVJ file, and then I bring it into Power BI as my report background, and then I just place my charts on it. Don't worry, we'll probably play around with some of these things over time, right? Many other questions that I've not attended. Please, if you ask a question that I've not answered, you could just recall it or something, so that I can move on to the next session. This class will end in 15 minutes time. So let me do we have to install Power BI? Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. As long as you have a laptop, that's the most important thing. So I can probably in the next class I can walk you through how to install your Power BI desktop on your laptop on your local system. But for some of the labs we'll be doing, it has already been installed for you in the environment that we're going to use. We're going to use Microsoft environment to simulate some of our labs. So everything has been simulated there for you. Where can you get past question for PL 300? Attend this class first. When we are done with this class, we can attend to that. Remember, I told you in my last session that it's possible to pass the exam without knowing the application just by practicing questions. But I'll prefer that you know the application right than passing the exam and not knowing the application right. So I have my questions for you because how do we register for the exam and what is the cost? So there are testing centers, there are training center. My office is an example, right? But there are a lot of centers where you can register for the exam. From Microsoft's website, you can navigate through it. I'll probably share screen and show you some of these things after now. All right, but what's the cost? I'm not sure of the current cost, but as I when I wrote mine, that's like how many years ago? It was $80. The standard cost is $165, but for some African countries, it was $80. But I think Microsoft has reviewed it. It should be maybe $85 now. I will check. You can ask me tomorrow, but I will check again. A guide on how to write the PL 300 exam. Complete the all the modules in the PL 300 curriculum, which is what we are doing in this training, and also study questions, and you will pass the exam. But you need to study questions properly. My LinkedIn ID, just search for Abiodun Akifenwa. You will see me there on LinkedIn, Power BI guy. So you will be able to easily recognize me. I see somebody asking something about snowflakes and star schema. So they are just different types of data model. When we get to modeling, I would explain that in more details. I have questions for you guys. Please let me ask you my questions, I beg. Um, so these are my questions, and I want you to drop the answer on the chat window. Let's start with the first question, guys. Um, I will answer more of your questions later. But let's answer these questions, guys. Uh, my LinkedIn is Abiodun Akifemwa. Even though I'm not a social person, but you'll find me on LinkedIn. Okay, so my questions, guys. First question: which role enables advanced analytics capabilities through visualization? Now, remember, don't be quick to answer the question. This is actually Microsoft's question that I'm literally giving you word for word, and this is how Microsoft will ask you questions for the PL 300 exam. The questions are tricky. The best way to answer the question is to watch out for the keyword. The keyword in the first question is enables advanced analytics capabilities. That's the keyword. So there is somebody, a role that all they do is to enable advanced analytics capabilities so that, and they enable it through reports and visualization. Which role is that? Which role enables advanced analytics capabilities through reports and visualization? So majority of the people on the call are saying data analysts, while some are saying data scientists. I can't see anybody saying data engineer, but majority are saying data analysts. Let's check if the answer is correct. The answer is actually correct. Data analyst. So I think you guys are intelligent, right? So the trick question is they enable advanced analytics capabilities. Remember, I said where the data analyst stops, that is where the data scientist will start. The data scientist does advanced analytics capabilities, but the person that enables the data scientist to do it is the data analyst. That's why most people will go for data scientists when the correct answer is data analyst. The reason why you go for data scientist is because you are focusing on advanced analytics capabilities. You are not focusing on the word enables. So they are not saying who is doing, they are saying who enables advanced analytics is the data analyst. Where the data analyst stops is where the data scientist will pick up from. So the data analyst enables advanced analytics capabilities through reports and visualization. All right, let's go to the second question. Which data analyst task has critical performance impact on reporting and data analysis? Look for the keyword. The keyword there is what? Critical performance impact on reporting and analysis and data analysis. Now, it means that if that task is missing, it will critically impact reporting. Which task has a critical performance impact? The keyword is critical performance impact. It would impact reporting and data analysis. Which tax is that? We are on the second question. Which tax is that? Which tax is that? You people are just saying model, 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 model. Nobody is saying analyze or visualize. Wow. Model B, interesting. Don't worry, me, I know what is going on. Don't worry. I knew about an hour ago, actually. Somebody has even jumped to the third question. Now, wow, you people are proud. But actually, you're correct. The answer is model. So that's very correct. That's very correct. So let's look at the final question. Um, what is a key benefit of data analysis? Now, let's look at the third question. What is a key benefit of data analysis? Um, Decisive analytics, informed business decision, complex reports. So I can see somebody saying informed business decision, informed business. Everybody's saying informed business decision. Don't cook beans. Informed business decision. Okay, okay, okay. Somebody, okay. Informed. Oh wow. B, informed business decision. Okay, wow, interesting. Okay, let's see the correct answer. The correct answer is actually informed business decision. Okay, which is fine. So that shows that I believe, I want to believe, let me use that word. Don't let me say I believe. I want to believe that we actually understand and know why we are choosing the right answer. We are not just doing copy and paste or going with a majority carries the votes. Okay, so let's go to the concluding part of today's report, getting started with Power BI. So I've given us a big intro on data analytics, business intelligence, the types of the data analyst, the role of the data in the roles in the data space, the types of storytelling, and all of that. So let's quickly talk about Power BI a little bit further. So Microsoft Power BI is a collection of software services, applications, and connectors. And what they do is they help you turn your unrelated data sources into interactive insights. I'll take it again. Microsoft Power BI is a collection of software services, applications, and connectors, and they help you turn your unrelated data sources into interactive visual. That's basically what data Power BI is. It's a combination of software services, applications, and connectors. They help you turn your unrelated data sources into interactive insights. Now, there are three components. There are three components of Power BI. There are three components of Power BI, which is the Power BI desktop, the Power BI desktop. That's the first component. Then we also have the Power BI service, which is the second component. And we have the Power BI mobile. So the person that asked me question on mobile phone, I said yes and no. This is why I said yes because of Power BI Mobile, and why I said no is because of Power BI Desktop. So let me take it back a bit. Let's start with Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop is a free application that you can install on your laptop. Pay attention to the word free. It's a free application that you. My slide is not moving. Oh my goodness. Apologies. Let me check, please. Um. Sorry. Okay, my slide seems to be fine here. Maybe it's your internet. Sorry about that. But I think my slide is fine here actually. So I guess it's probably your internet. So for the person that said my slide isn't moving, um, okay, so we have Power BI Desktop. It's a free application that you can install on your computer, on your laptop, and it allows you to do your ETL, your modeling, and your visualization. That's the first component of Power BI, which is the Power BI Desktop. In fact, when you want to do your report as an analyst, you start from the Power BI Desktop, and it's a free application that you have to install on your local. You have to install it. You have to install it on your local. Okay, I think you guys are still not seeing my slide. That's interesting. Let me check again. Just give me a minute. Uh, okay, so it seems. Uh, okay, you know what? Should I reshare? Let me reshare my screen. I'm gonna stop sharing. Right? I don't know why my slide is not moving, but I just stopped sharing my slide now. Allow me to reshare. Allow me to reshare. I would actually end the class in the next few minutes. So wherever we stop, we'll pick up from there in the next session, regardless, right? I don't want to quickly rush you to finish this one, and then I want everybody to get all the value and benefit they can get, right? Even though I'm almost done with this slide, but I'm sharing my screen again. So just let me know. Um, I'm sharing my screen again. Okay, so my screen should be up now, guys. So let me know if you can see my screen. Just say yes, I can see. Okay, someone said yes. Cool. Now it's visible now. Okay. I apologize. I will find a fix to all these internet. Well, actually, I cannot solve internet reception issues, but I will try as much as possible to see how I can get the best out of the all the internet I have in this house. Okay, so I was going to explain Power BI Desktop. It's a free application that you install on your laptop. So it's free. If you want to install just on your if you okay, let me explain this. I think I'll just explain Microsoft Power BI Desktop, and then we will continue from this slide next in our next class, which is tomorrow. I'll continue from here so that I don't rush you. Power BI Desktop is a free application that you install on your PC. All right, it's completely free. To install it, go to number one, you need to be on a Windows PC. So if you're using a MacBook, you will not be able to install Power BI Desktop on a MacBook. You can only install it on a Windows laptop, because I get that question a lot. Of course, some people would say they will partition their Mac OS to run Mac OS and Windows OS. It might not be so healthy for your MacBook machine. All right. But I mean, if you're able to, I wouldn't advise that. But if you want to use and enjoy Power BI, install it on your Windows PC. So get a Windows PC and install it. Most people actually use a Windows machine, right? So install Power BI Desktop. How do you install Power BI Desktop on your Windows computer? On your Windows computer, whether you're using Windows 10, Windows 11, but I expect that you'll be on the latest window actually, Windows 11. Just go to your Microsoft Store. You know the way you have your App Store for all your application, your operating systems, like your Apple Store, your Google Play Store, and all of that. Microsoft also have their own Microsoft Store. So just go to your Microsoft Store on your laptop and search for Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop. download and install it directly from Microsoft Store. Now, don't ask somebody to, is it compatible with Windows 8? I'm not sure if you can use it on Windows 8, but I know that Windows 10, Windows 9, and Windows 10. Sorry, I said 9. Apologies. Windows 10 and 11, right? So go to your Microsoft Store, download and install from there, right? The reason why I said you should get it from your Microsoft Store um, is because it will automatically update every month. Microsoft releases new version. Someone is asking about Power BI report server and gateway. We don't need that now. When we get to managing your data assets, I will talk about it. Don't worry. That's why there's a line of what we are learning. When we get, that's the final thing we'll talk about. You don't need that now. Data gateway and all of that. So install from your Microsoft Store so that it can automatically update every month. Microsoft releases a new version or an update of the Power BI desktop every month. So if you download it and install it from your Microsoft Store, it will automatically update by itself as long as there's internet on your laptop. Every month, it automatically updates. So I would advise you to download and install from there. All right. But to start the lab, I'm going to give you an environment where you can easily simulate the lab without having to do any installation. All right. It's a prepared environment by Microsoft. Okay. But if you want to also have it on your local machine, just go to your Microsoft Store and you can download and install from there. Okay. Now, the next thing I'll talk about is the Power BI service, but I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. Okay. So I'm going to stop on this slide and then I'll talk about Power BI service tomorrow, and we'll try and do a little bit of hands-on tomorrow. Okay, but I'm going to stop here for tonight. Um, um, do we have any any concern, any questions? Okay, someone said they just finished installing. Another person said Power BI complains about compatibility on Windows 8. So for you to have the best experience, just go to just use Windows 10, update your OS to Windows 10 or 11. All right. Yes. So let me stop here for tonight. I don't want to exceed the dedicated time because I know for some of us would have other meetings and other things to attend to. But I'm going to pick it up from here tomorrow. If there was any question I missed out, apologies. I would attend to it tomorrow. I would attend to it tomorrow. But I hope you were able to learn one or two things today. All right. But if there are anything I missed out, I promise you we'll touch it tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed the session. Someone asked for my LinkedIn name, Abiodun Akinfemiwa. Abiodun Akinfemiwa, yes. So Abiodun Akinfemiwa, right? That's it. You find me on LinkedIn. So thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate you. Thank you for your time. So tomorrow we'll conclude this portion and then we'll go into some practicals and some of those things that I mentioned on the call. My explanation would also try and look at some of them. All right. And for the guys that are a bit of advanced here, we'll do some time intelligence analysis. If time permits, we might do some financial reporting. All right. So I don't know if we have like accountants in the house and all of that. So we might touch some of those things during the course of the training. Okay. But for now, we'll start from the very basics, which is ETL, extract, transform, load. Thank you very much and do enjoy the rest of your evening.